Is Martin here? Martin? Oh, come on. Okay, so what we're gonna talk about here in the next few minutes should come as no surprise to you. If you remember in the last nephew workshop in Mountain View, we did mention that the elephant is working on that. But even if you didn't listen that time or forgot since, we'll give you a quick recap, and then hopefully I'll try to do it quick so you'll have time for question and answers. And we have one of the contributors, the community members here, Martin from Tieto. Um, so let's get into it. So in this room, I don't think we need to explain the benefit of cloud nativeness, so you all understand it. But just to mention two triggers of the recent triggers for this work, there was an NGMN cloud native manifesto that was created by communication service providers, expressing how they see the transition to cloud native network functions. And as a kind of response to that or reaction to that, the CNCF, a group under the CNCF at the time, responded with a white paper that kind of double clicks on that and explains some of the concepts there and how they can be addressed. And a little bit of a history lesson, even before all these white papers and manifestos, both the CNCF and LF Networking had initiatives to kind of help people certify their network functions. And what we're going to discuss here is actually based on the merge of all these things, which both reduces complexity and ambiguity for end users, but also kind of tries to build on the good things, good parts of both these previous initiatives. So the challenges, again, no need to explain in this room. You know how complex it is to take a network application, network function, and deploy it on a Kubernetes infrastructure, and they all are using the same concept but end up being a little bit different, and it is a complex task to build functions that will eventually run on that platforms, play nicely with each other, don't interfere with each other, and really benefit from the cloud native tenants. So we all know about like Kubernetes and things like Silva that provide infrastructure, things that, like Kamar that expose the functionality, and of course we're here in the nephew community. So these are well-known open source components, but if we want to reach all the stuff on the right side of this diagram, the real benefit of a cloud native ecosystem, there are some missing pieces, which is what this program is focusing on. First of all, it's good to agree on some best practices of what does it mean to build a true cloud native network function. Then you need to test, make sure you comply with the practices. It's best to have a certification that will help you kind of get a check mark for your network function, identifying that you passed all the necessary tests. And most importantly, it's important to have an expert community of people who are focused just on that aspect of what does it mean to build a cloud native network function that will continue building these best practices and test frameworks. So the CNTi, the Cloud Native Telco Initiative under the LFN, is addressing exactly that missing piece in the middle. And it has three main parts. Number one here is the best practices, meaning giving network function developers all the information they need and all the advice and examples and so on and so forth about how to build a true cloud native network function. Then another important part is the test framework and catalog. So the idea is to build a catalog of tests, and I'll get into that, that you can use for both testing and certifying your network function and making sure it's cloud native. And finally, there is a certification that builds on top of this test framework and kind of executes several tests on your network function, provides you reports and a score and pass fail and so on and so forth. What this CNTi cannot do or will not do is focus on any cloud-specific infrastructure. As you've seen in the 2 slides ago, there are just too many of them, and there is no practical way to ensure that your CNF will run on all the platforms in the world. So there needs to be some adjustments per cloud infrastructure, and of course there's a need to do complete end-to-end interoperability testing with all the components of the network. This is not the intention of this initiative. So what does it mean for Nephew? I guess you're asking by now, or I hope you're asking by now. So the idea, as I said, the core of this initiative is this test catalog that is constantly developed and improved. And this catalog has these relations that you see here with other organizations and initiatives, most importantly here is other projects, but the initiative works with vendors of network functions, with service providers, to understand what's important to them and to reflect that in the test catalog. The whole idea is that bidirectional arrow you see here, that it's not something that is developed by a single group and then consumed by other. The idea is that what these bidirectional arrows suggest is two-way collaboration, where folks and organizations from different projects and different organizations can come in and take part in enhancing that test catalog and enriching it. So in the case of other open source projects like Nephew, there's no need for you to create from scratch your own testing infrastructure and framework. You can just use this as an upstream project and add the stuff that is specific to Nephew, like formats of packages once you settle on what's the preferred format or not, or any other certification and validation that is needed for Nephew. You can, again, there are so many essential parts you need to take care of when you build a test infrastructure, and these initiatives give you most of them. So no point in reinventing the wheel, just look at what is available there and figure out how you can kind of create project-specific tests on top of that and enrich the catalog with things that are Nephew specific. During most of the work started earlier this year in earnest, and what was very important this year was to build a market awareness. As I said, there was some ambiguity in previous years about maybe too many certification, validation, and testing programs. So one of the goals was to make sure that everybody understands that the focus in the industry is now in this CNTi initiative under the LFN. And to get there, we realized that we need to expand the community that is building this test catalog and certification program. So Martin here is living proof of the success of expanding the community. We with new contributors that are now part of this. We are also on the brink of officially launching the certification program. Everything is in place. We're just waiting for the final review and green light from the LF Networking Governing Board. But other than that, we're good for a launch. And if anybody's interested, the testing and certification are available in beta format. And of course, all the test catalog is available on GitHub, and you can both see it and even consume it. That's kind of a repetitive slide. I don't think there's anything new here. As I said, keep in mind there are 3 parts of the program: the best practices, the testing catalog, and the certification program. This is kind of a concentration of all the ways of communication. If you are interested in getting involved, involved means you can start consuming that. Involved means you can start participating in the best practices meetings and start contributing best practices, document, add more tests, whatever comes to mind. Can be as small or as little as you see fit. The community is open. All the meetings are open and accessible to everyone. Most of it is in this wiki space and, of course, GitHub. That's all I had in terms of slides. As I said, Martin here, if you have specific questions about the test catalog, I don't know, Sana is kind of representative of the service providers. You want to say a few words about why this is important?
Thanks, Rennie. I have been a huge supporter of this program for a long time. I was one of the contributors of the NGM and Cloud Native Manifesto, as well as the other white paper that LFN published. I had the opportunity during this conference to basically present my biggest concern or question in the Executive Innovation Forum. And guess what? I picked up this subject. And I shared with all the executives across the industry that one of the fundamental problems that is actually holding us back from realizing the value of cloud and realizing the value of Nephew and realizing the value of Silva and realizing the value of ORAN is just this problem. So how can we solve that? And I think one of the patterns that I shared with those executives was that the shift has to also happen in the commercial models, which is when people will start paying attention to the work that the groups are doing here. So vendors will start to adopt them, they will certify them, and the service providers will have a bigger voice in driving this philosophy with their partners. So TELUS is big on this. And even in our board, one of the high priority projects we have voted for this project, Rennie, if that helps. You want me to give it more importance?
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about how would it be consumed? So certification is usually, if I was a financial institute, I'll bring in Big Six, do the audit, give me a certificate. And other cases, like in Cable Labs, does the certification for equipment, meets the standard. What is your vision? Is it going to be use this template, self-certify, share the results, or send your product somewhere and let them certify it? Thank you.
The current idea is to have self-certification process. We have full documentation on our certification repo with instruction for self-certifying, and everybody, providers or vendors, can follow the steps, execute tests for themselves in their certified environment, get results generated and submitted as a pull request to certification repo to community. And our CNTi community will review the results and potentially give a certification stamp or beta certification stamp for now.
I had another question. Sorry, I was not here from the beginning. Is there also a way to, do you have hardware that can be leveraged in the lab, or we have to bring it, if we want to use it, we have to bring it ourselves? Because in FU, for example, so you'll see probably later in the afternoon, there's some discussion, they want to do bare metal and try to test it on a certain environment. So we are trying to find an environment that we can reliably rely upon, that we can leverage for some of our testing and some of the certification that we want to do in our environment. So is that a facility or that a capability that would be leveraged or not at all?
Yeah, we require the certification process and tests to be run on certified platform. So we rely on CNCF to define that platform certification, and I guess that there are tools for them, like Sonobui. No. Yes.
Yeah, we are kind of short on resources and looking forward to have some community contributions, maybe. I think we're working on something similar for Nephew in general. With I think OAI proposed to contribute something, which is a very welcome contribution. We hope to see more, and at some point we might see some resources available by contribution for that. But for now, as Martin said, it's all based on self-execution on platforms that are compliant and certified.
Sorry, I missed first few minutes of this presentation, but I've already mentioned this. What is this framework based on? Watch 2 is this particularly the test development thing. Is this based on a particular tool or framework?
Yeah, the CNTi program consists of 3 lines or repositories. First is defining best practices, which is kind of documentation only. Then certification program, which is also mostly documentation and instructions how to do that. And the tool part is a CNTi test catalog. And this is a test suite. It's based on Crystal language. And we have a set of tests or library of tests as a part of this test suite. We have basically around 70 workload tests for testing CSCF and about 20 platform tests.
Sorry, if we bring in the more test, is it pluggable? Will the main driver will run all the tests automatically?
Our main focus are workload tests for testing CSCF.
Okay, for example, if Nephew brings test, will the main test driver will it automatically invoke additional tests being added by other projects?
Probably. It's a command line tool. As I said, it's written in Crystal, so it means it's compiled language and it's statically linked. So whatever can call command line can use it.
Thank you.
You want to comment that?
No, I was planning to answer that question. Yeah, Bala is pluggable. So basically you have like a best practice. So the workflow could be like go to the best practice, like we have the meetings on Mondays. So you discuss the practice. We create like, as Martin was saying, like we provide like what is the best practice in general way. So once that this best practice is approved, so definitely we can integrate in the test suite. So also Watson is over there. So yeah, well, maybe, yeah. And what I have seen is like some companies are using their own CIs. So basically what they're doing is they develop the CNF, and in their workflow, they are running the test suite, making sure that all the best practices are still following. But well, this is like a mostly to ensuring like you're following the best practice in the CNF, in your CNF. I mean, not the infrastructure at all, like that. But yeah. Yeah, maybe something that we have to follow.
I would like to comment just as what the lady said in the front row, basically about what telcos about let's say common requirements in the industry to support this approach. And basically, I just can give an example that in Europe, at least the 5 big operators had this MOU group to define exactly on those requirements on towards this kind of ORAN journey, and challenges could be tackled in a similar way globally. But just I would agree that telco is quite complex and this kind of alignment is required. On the other hand, I would also propose basically that this cross collaboration across the SDOs would help also to support this one, because when I see what is happening in ORAN with, for example, this I14Y lab, where we exactly tackle this interoperability test, potentially those labs can work together with a batching process, which is anyway also there with TIP and a couple of others. So I think it would make sense if we really concentrate on specific use cases like RAN. Why not then looking exactly on those kind of specific purposes? So that would be just my advice, basically, that the LFN could also work jointly with ORAN Alliance on that.
One question, and I think we discussed this with the session what you had in the main conference, and we've been there with Beth, and there came the question to my mind. So can you explain what is the benefit of having the certification program if you do not certify against a thing? Like you do not, this current certification program doesn't guarantee that the CNF will run anywhere, basically. So what's the benefit of having the certification program if there is no guarantee?
Yeah, so I think it's not the first time we're discussing that. Making your CNF ready for deployment at the telco environment has many aspects. Some of them are platform dependent, some are not. You can make sure that your application adheres to the 12-factor concepts and everything, but still it does not mean it will read on Red Hat OpenShift, for example, right? So I think there are two aspects there, and as I presented in one of the slides, intentionally the more maybe challenging part of somehow validating for every platform in existence is currently out of scope. I'm not saying it will stay that forever. First of all, it's a community effort. If folks want to add things that are more platform specific, then it could be considered. But at the moment, the focus is on the common denominator, I would say, of CNFs, not necessarily the differences between how different platforms might implement network connectivity or so on and so forth, or multi-addressing, or all these nasty things that the CNFs usually need.
Yes, thanks. That's clear. Yesterday in the presentation, we spent, I don't know, Watson knows the numbers, but we spent several minutes on defining what is cloud native and how cloud native relates to telco, and the conclusion was that there is no clear definition. And for me, that means that certifying against an unclear definition is not a very good way to go.
I'm sorry, we've got workers in the back that are doing our AV team gets an hour union break. So we got to cut things short. We can maybe slip in something quick, but we're done for an hour for lunch.
Yeah, so I just want to conclude by saying Martin's here, Watson here, I forgot, but Victor is also, has been a contributor, and Cedric is here. So if you have any question, feel free to reach out to them as well.
Yeah, we definitely need to bring up the certification more and really look at it really hard. Aniket Assured is definitely.
I would like to invite you for tomorrow, 11:15. I will run 2 sessions for CNTi certification, one for beginners and second for more advanced users. So you are invited.
Thank you. Sorry about not mentioning this.
Okay, everyone that is online, we're going to shut the Zoom bridge down for lunch. We will be returning just after 1. Feel free to join us again then. Thank you.